that you're home in Northern Ireland. Well, Raquel, is it really true that you're the only Jamaican poet from Belfast?
I actually think that's true. In fact, I think it might well be that I'm the only Jamaican poet on the island of Ireland.
And did you know that there was a Jamaican poet here before that published a collection in 1941?
I did not. That was brand new news to me. So I was actually quite excited to discover that not only was there a Jamaican poet here before, but one that published here. That was exciting.
And so you've read the collection, and what's your general reaction to it?
I have to say I've been pleased to see that some of the same inspirations are true for him as they are for me. The levels of homesickness, the seeing things with new eyes and new perspectives, etc.
What were the poems that really stood out to you?
One of the ones that really stood out for me was My Brother Died.
Lord, what a cruel death. My black brother died, bound to a stake and burned like a swine.
It is quite a serious topic. It's also a bit sad that 80 years later, the same thing that he was grappling with, I'm still grappling with now. So the whole issue of race and racism has not been addressed enough yet.
Levy became an active member of the Dublin branch of the Association for Students of African Descent that advocated for racial justice. During the invasion of 1935, the group petitioned the Irish government to support Ethiopia against the Italian invaders. Levy wrote his uncompromising poem, The Rape of Ethiopia.
Oh, beat the drums of death, oh, beat them long and beat them low, for soon a ghastly death shall be, and wrap my carcass in a shroud. The last stronghold of all that men is now devoured by the whites. The pretext now is not as when the French and British robbed our rights. This time we're charged in flashing words unless we yield in stubborn stand. The bubbling wrath of fascist herd will hurl down death upon our land. Death wafted down in mustard gas and then with roars from bursting bombs. Those ancient Christians stood aghast to see their holy acts of bomb. Awake, O bleeding Africa, avenge this gaping Roman wound. Rouse your sons from Cape to Dhaka, O sprawl out forever doomed.
We can get to know a lot about Frederick Levy through his poems, letters, and newspaper articles. But we do know that he went on to spend his career as a medical officer back in Jamaica. One person can bring us much closer to the man himself.
Hello.
Hello, Belinda.
Oh, hi, Kingston. Nice to hear from you.
It's so good to have you on the line. I'm quite privileged is how I feel to be telling the story of your father, Ferdinand Levy, and it is a privilege to hear from you as well. I think the first thing I'd want to ask you is what time you were only 13, I know, when he died.
Well, overall, I'd say that my dad had a charming disposition. He was well liked and well known and respected. He was blessed to be fairly affluent by Jamaican standards. My parents' marriage was harmonious and loving. And I just feel very lucky to have had such a lovely person as a father, really.
It's written in the record that I've seen that his dad was a clerk.
I didn't know my grandfather.
Were you lucky to know your grandmother?
Yes, my grandmother, Gertrude Bernard, obviously when I knew her, she was retired, but she was really helpful to my dad because when he went down to study, she went to New York to work as a hairdresser to earn money to send to my dad to help him with his education. He was always really, really grateful to her for that. And in order to show his appreciation later on in life, built a home for her in Kingston.
I wonder, Belinda, if you remember ever seeing him write poetry.
No, my dad didn't write poetry. The major points were poems in his book. And I found some other little poems that he wrote, but they were just like personal. They were like love poems to my mom and so on.
I was interested in what your favorite poet from this collection is.
Well, in regards to my dad's poetry, my favorite poem is called Tropic Sketch. I'll read it for you if you want me to.
I would love that.
Okay? It's just a short poem. Tropic Sketch. A crystal moon, delicately curved, out from the heart of a starless sky, and down in the tune of a salty pool, the Caribbean. Jason, that's my favorite poem because it just reminds me of our home in Montego Bay. Obviously, my dad wrote that years before he built our lovely family home. But it does remind me of standing on our veranda as a family at night and looking out over the ocean, what a wonderful view of the ocean. Because it actually literally beautiful night over the ocean. It was absolutely breathtaking. And just as beautiful as my dad described it in his voice.
The review in the Irish Times was the regular poetry columnist Austin Clarke. It's a joint review of a book of poems by Louis MacNeice, which he bans at the same time as he praises Freddie Levy's poems. For Clarke, Louis MacNeice's poems are tasteless, and he likes the fact that Levy's poetry is rooted in experience, it's rooted in a strong sense of place, of culture. It seems really important to ask why his poetry has been forgotten. Why do you think that is?
There are a few things from my own experience of poetry that suggest this could be one that is so outside of the norm that probably there is no pocket to put it into. Another thing is that some of the things that he's dealing with, like my brother Daniel, is unfortunately not something that we want to address.
Right now, a good time to rediscover his poetry.
There's never a bad time to discover any kind of poetry. This is a good time as well because it's like a new era for black poetry in Ireland, and it's actually quite encouraging to know that Ireland was welcoming of his voice back in that day.
It's just a shame, really. I think that his poetic career ended here. We can't know how he would have developed or where he would have gone. His debut was also his last book of poems. So I'm finishing my trip to Ireland here on Killiney Beach. It is quite poignant for me to be standing here in a place that Levy clearly loved and wrote about his poetry. Knowing that this Jamaican poet who in some ways, many ways actually, reminds me of myself, was part of the literary scene here, has changed my perception of Irish poetry. I do wonder how many missing voices are yet to be discovered, but I am glad to have found his. I think that rediscovering Levy's voice is an important thing right now, not only for the black poets who live and work here today, like Raquel McKee and Matty Jola, but also for the ones that are to come. And not just that, it is a part of the story of Irish poetry.
On first visiting Calais, someday, oh someday soon, gonna sit right down, right and all to the moon. Gonna tell all the world about the Shim Sham Ship, the Polgaboo shook upon the Irish. While Joan and Dana and Hazel and me chipped flat stones across the Irish sea. Yeah, Lord, and how we stood at the line day and watched the yellow lights twinkle up and gray. Gonna tell all the world about the sounding breeze, comingling with the humming bees. Gonna tell them too about Victoria on the hill and how she sat there wrapped and chill. And the joke we told about the aged queen, you know damn well which one I mean. Gonna tell them, Lord, gonna tell them soon. Gonna tell them about how I saw the moon. Shim, sham, shim, all over the place.
That's a Rock Finish production for Radio 4, produced by Clay Cunningham, the reader of Marionesis. Millions of people have access to an employee assistance program through their workplace. They're designed specifically to help people deal with personal problems that might affect their performance at work. After the news, File on 4 looks into whether all the providers can good service.
On BBC Radio 4, you have the capital city that has become, ground zero. Sudan's latest civil war is devastating, displacing millions of civilians and killing thousands.
My own children are now sharing this disturbance with the fleeing relatives of our house.
But with the news focused on the Middle East and Ukraine, are we hearing enough about it?
Never mind the shortage of funds, which is a serious problem. There's an even more serious problem that you can't reach the people who really need it.
Join me, James Cotnell, as I investigate the war the world forgot. This Friday morning at 11 on BBC Sounds and Radio 4.
BBC News at 5 o'clock. Russians who live in the UK have queued for more than a mile outside their embassy in London on the final day of presidential elections in which Vladimir Putin is the only serious candidate. Allies of the late opposition leader Alexei Navalny had called on people to turn out at midday in Moscow and other cities to spoil their ballots or vote for any other candidate. This man was waiting in line to vote at polling stations set up at the embassy in central London.
I started off to gather people to because they are taking sort of us creating how to use these dates still for purposes. And the whole idea is that all of us together at the same time, we're like to create this massive line so that you cannot ignore the amount of protests that there exists from Russian residents of the UK.
The Transport Secretary Mark Harper has refused to confirm reports that the Conservatives accepted a further donation of £5 million from a businessman accused of making racist comments about the MP Diane Abbott. Frank Hester has insisted his criticism that Ms Abbott had nothing to do with her gender or colour of skin. The senior Labour MP Harriet Harman says she will be sad if Diane Abbott ends her career without being allowed back into the parliamentary party. Ms Abbott has apologised after she was suspended for claiming that Jewish, Irish and traveller people don't suffer racism in their lives. Labour says that independent investigation is ongoing. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, says his forces will carry out a military operation against the crowded city of Rafah in southern Gaza, despite international pressure. The Prime Minister was speaking ahead of a ceasefire talks in Qatar as Israel continued its bombardment of Gaza.
That's not what this is. If you want our help, basically go away, decide what the problem is, what your solution is, and come back to us. They weren't even willing to help me come to some kind of solution. If I knew a solution to all of that, I'm an intelligent woman, I'd be doing it. How long were you on the phone with me before?
I probably wasn't on the phone for more than 15 minutes.
I was crying, I said I was feeling really low. She didn't know that I was suicidal, so she was just going to send me off and not know that actually what I wasn't going to do was going to go outside and step outside in front of the bus. It felt like you could really be letting some people down.
Did you feel let down?
When Dawn's cousin Paul passed away, her boss suggested she call Health Assurance Hospital, but she said she lost all hope.
I just felt like I was just a number, that I was just the next person along the farewells. But I wasn't an individual person with my own individual problems, I was just the next person along.
Dawn wasn't the only person we spoke to who struggled to get support. Others told us they too find it hard to get the help they needed, not just from Health Assurance, but from various other EAP providers. And it wasn't just service users we approached. We wanted to speak to the people on the other end of the call, the counsellors themselves. So producer Ella Rulandau hit the phone.
Hi, my name's Ella. I'm from the BBC.
Hi, thanks for the connection.
I'm looking to why your sister's called.
Some people we contacted got back, others did not. Those that did were cautious. They didn't want to get into trouble and lose their jobs. Not all of them did.
Yeah, I wasn't over yet. We really get a whole range of people calling in trauma, bereavement, work-related stress, low self-esteem, anxiety, depression. But I will say, if I get a teacher calling me, 9 times out of 10 it's work-related stress and demands. Same with the NHS. Police, 9 times out of 10, internal bullying.
This is Amy. She started working for Health Assured as a wellbeing counsellor last year. She says very often the people who call are desperate. They're contacting Health Assured because they think they need therapy. Amy isn't her real name, but this is her voice.
But it is a bit nerve-wracking when that happens because you've got targets to meet, and every time you think someone calling the therapy, you're sort of stepping further and further away from the targets. The target is to put as few people through as possible. 20% of my calls are put forward through to therapy. No matter how many people call in, so on a big day, you might be getting 4 or 5 calls an hour. I've had people call me and say, hi, I'm calling up to arrange my system, to book it in, I've heard I can get it. We're taught in that moment to not go, yeah, okay, let's start that. We're taught to try and put them out of it, basically, and give them in the moment support and try and resolve their issue without referring them through to counselling.
Amy is recently qualified. But more on that later. As this promo video suggests, Health Assured is one of the biggest EAP providers out there, offering support to over 13 million people. Their clients include NHS trusts, universities, and police forces. When we first started working on this story, we spoke to staff from various different providers, and we found it was people who work for Health Assured who raised the most serious concerns. And while Amy was the only one in position to give an independent and calm voice, others gave strikingly similar accounts.
I don't want to bore you with the kind of like disgruntled employee stuff.
This is Robert. He's also a qualified counselor. He didn't want to lose his job, so like others you'll hear in this program, he's changed his name and his words are spoken silently.
So we are called wellbeing counsellors. What we provide is not in any way, shape or form counselling.
Robert thinks the targets they're set for length of call or how many people they can refer through to counselling act almost like an incentive.
There is an incentive to not give the client what the client is asking for. There's an incentive to try and fob the client off, essentially. With coping strategies that are useful, but if someone is calling in because they believe they need counselling and you talk them into some breathing exercises instead, it sort of fundamentally feels a bit wrong to me.
You use the words fob off. Do you genuinely feel like that's the job you effectively have to do?
Yeah, 100%. That's the job of being asked to do. And we do whenever particularly if calls go over 20 minutes. And quite often the manager will just start listening in. I'll get a message on Teams telling me to wrap it up.
What's the nature of those calls, and does it feel appropriate to wrap up?
So that would range from people who are essentially just experiencing a low mood or struggling with their job, And in those cases, yeah, it feels appropriate to wrap up to a certain extent. I've also had people tell me to wrap up on calls where, people have called in with very serious issues. So, historic sexual abuse, bereavement, and then clients, they would deem upset to find out something to say.
I asked him if Tommy knew that the was He said he assumed it was covered by one of those who call managers for quality training and testing, but he wasn't sure.
One of the things my manager will say to me if I'm referring to new people is that it's a solution to focus on therapy activities to try and provide in the moment support. And I certainly do my best to provide support. I've never had any training in solution focused therapy.
Do they
I'm working my way through it, but I've had no training in it.
Health Assure told us its ultimate focus is on clinical outcomes. It said its clinical service is accredited by the Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy, an accreditation which involves annual audits of its clinical processes and policies. The company said it delivered over 240,000 counselling sessions last year, and that more than 60% of the in-the-moment calls lasted longer than 20 minutes, adding that counsellors are not targeted on limiting the number of people that are referred on. It weaves the messages sent to counsellors which seem to show weekly changes during sessions. In one, it appears they're asked to keep calls below 19 minutes and to refer just 18% of callers to therapy. At one point, a supervisor reminds counsellors that calls are, and I quote, not the right place for clients to fight for everything. Counsellors who exceed the target have their stats highlighted and read by their name. Robert says working in this way has taken its toll.
I'm just exhausted. Drained. I don't think I've ever cried at my desk at a job before, but I've cried several times at my desk at this job.
Do you worry at all about people to make you wonder what happens when they kind of fall?
Yeah. I'd just like to apologise to anyone who may have received counselling and may have been essentially fobbed off by me. It's something I don't think I should have done.
Not long after we spoke, Robert quit his job at Health Assure without a job to go to. He said he felt too ethically competent to continue working there. And he wasn't the only one. Here's Amy again.
On my last day, my dad texted me, "Congratulations, does it feel good to be free?" And I said, "Thank you, it feels amazing. My last shift was wild and stressful and just amazing."
Your family all knew you were stressed, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. The service that we say we're offering is not the service that we're providing. You go into being purpose because you want to help people. It's not like it goes against what you've worked hard for, what you've trained for. Really hard.
Health Assure told us it uses a variety of methods to support callers, and that the most appropriate route is decided by a detailed clinical assessment. It says counsellors are not discouraged from taking breaks if they need one. It adds that it holds itself to the highest standard, both in the care it provides and the well-being of its employees. I've travelled to Hampshire to meet Michael. He's showing us around the home he shares with his wife and kids. It is bright and full of personality. When we visit, he's on a day off, colouring with his 3-year-old son. Mikey works as an emergency nurse practitioner at a busy A&E in a nearby hospital. But 2 years ago,
I need to go on a date with my wife, and everything will be okay.
okay, you've spoken to the person, you've explained everything that you told me today, and that was their response.
Yeah. Go on a date with my wife, and everything will be okay.
Is that really?
Yeah. Sounds to me like you need some time with your wife.
Where did you guys leave it? What did you expect to happen next?
From the Health Assured, but from my I need discharge from the care.
Did they tell you that you didn't need any counselling, you didn't need any help?
No, just a date with my wife. So that was it. We're here if you need us.
Several weeks passed, When things didn't improve, he went back to his employer and asked if he could be referred over to an in-house therapist. It says he was told, once again, to call Health Assurance.
It's with a different person. But it sensed the surprised tone in her voice when they said my mental health assessment was incomplete. Okay. It's not good, but good now that you have acknowledged that your two previous colleagues hadn't done a thorough mental health assessment. And then the outcome of that was that the lady offered me counselling.
6 weeks after he first called, Health Assured put Mikey in touch with a local therapist for face-to-face counselling, which he says was transformative. But he's concerned others might give up, even though they really need help. There is no quick fix. Life's traumas and, life's troubles can't be fixed with a magic wand. It takes time, patience, respect, and confidentiality, and I suppose some people feel really sad to explore that stuff. Sharon McCormick, the clinical director of the smaller EAP we heard from earlier, says why she runs a business. She's a therapist first. A few years back, she says she was approached by a different EAP provider with an offer to buy her out. For her, the idea that some of the larger providers could offer standard packages for so little money didn't add up. So she asked them, how do you make a profit? And so the explanation I was given back is, well, let's imagine that there's 1,000 staff members in this country. Only 20% of them will contact us. And out of that 20%, we'll signpost them to self-help. And the rest, we try to signpost people or convince people to get telephone counselling because it's cheaper for us as a company. And if they really want face-to-face counselling, we agree. That's the most expensive outlay for us, so for us it's the last resort. So what do you think? Staggered to look at that business model and think, well, that is how that particular EAP works. I was just blown away, really, and it's just not how I work. Dr. Elizabeth Cotton thinks this is key to the EAP business model. Companies, and I would say this is generally true of online therapy platforms, they only make money because of attrition. By that I mean they're either not turning up or not making the phone call to their workplace EAP or taking 2 sessions and then deciding it's not for them, by making it difficult to access services, people getting lost in call centres. It's designed so that a very low percentage of people actually access therapy. What is the impact of this model on clients, customers, someone who calls up for a EAP? Well, at best it's frustrating. At worst, I would say it's very unsafe. It's dangerous. What do you say then? I think the risk of calling an EAP and being put on hold and then waiting for a phone call, the feelings of not being listened to, not being able to find helpful people, being alone, are exacerbated. And I think that's a risk. And when you say doing this, what is it that you do? You can't draw a direct causal link between calling an EAP and not getting the help you need and suicide. It's a bit more complex than that, but the risks is very clearly going to potentially push people further away rather than towards getting help. I think it can potentially be very dangerous. Health Assured told Final Four they reject the claim that their business model relies on a small number of people being able to access therapy, or that there's been a shift from clinical to financial logic, and in all services where it is suitable for structured counselling or online CBT have this arranged for them. We spent months speaking to current and former employees of Health Assured, including people who worked on the helpline and managers who were responsible for overseeing teams of counselling. They began to paint a similar picture. Morale was low, staff turnover was high, waiting lists were often long, and staff sometimes struggled to keep up. Several people we spoke to were concerned that clinical staff were sometimes managed by people who had no experience working as a counsellor. I've had scenarios multiple times where this had to be coached because someone's taking steps somewhere in life, life or death, it's Working at work on a helpline and support counsellor for over 2 years. If I feel like risk is high, if I feel that you are not keep yourself safe, what I always do is I write a message to the team saying, is someone listening? Is likely to services so that a manager whoever's available will listen into the call. But there can be a non-clinical manager. What do you mean by not clinical? So I'm clinically trained. I went to university to become a counsellor. I've become a qualification counsellor. The clinical managers are counsellors or psychotherapists. The non-clinical managers have no experience at all of being a counsellor. I had someone on the phone and they told me they couldn't be self-safe. They were incredibly distressed on the phone. Everyone's mental health was suffering, including my own. My experience with the counsellors was they were just terrified of doing anything wrong. They were so aware that they were being watched at all times. They were just, nervous, anxious. There's a lot of crying. Experienced staff told us some counsellors were managing these cases almost in a state of panic, not always sure of the right thing to do. And on several occasions, counsellors failed to thoroughly explain or act on safeguarding concerns. Looking back now, maybe years ago, it was really traumatizing. It took a real toll on my mental health. I had to go into my own personal therapy because of that. It's really hard for me to look back and when I started, there was anywhere between 1,000 to 1,800 calls a day. It just wasn't possible to sustain those numbers. How long might people have been waiting to speak with a counsellor? There'd always be at least 1,000 clients waiting to be contacted. This form of staffer says when demand reached a critical point, they were informed by senior management that they had a plan to clear the residents. It was explained in one of the meetings that they were going to send out a mass text to everyone in the team to say, thank you for calling Health Assured. We've attempted to contact you today. I'm sorry you weren't able to take the call. Please feel free to call us back on this number. We're available 24/7. So they were sending out text messages to give the impression that the company had tried to get in touch, when really they hadn't. Yes, it was almost a last resort of, we can't clear this queue, we don't have the staff. We're going to close all these cases. This would go to, in some cases, to over 1,000 people in the queue. It was completely unethical, really dangerous. Children who's in that team. Health Assured said counsellors were never told to send text messages suggesting attempts had been made to contact clients when they hadn't, adding its most vulnerable clients are prioritised at all times for urgent support. It said the pressures described by those we spoke to were a result of a widespread increase in the pressure on all mental health professionals during and after the pandemic, and pointed us to an extensive support package available to counsellors. The EAP Association said the industry is being treated as a frontline emergency service, filling a gap in NHS resources, adding to the recently introduced new audit processes for members. We put these allegations and the others made by counsellors we spoke to the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, or the BAC. They're the largest professional body for counsellors and psychotherapists in the UK and the body that accredits Health Assured's counselling services. They told us they'll be investigating the claims and contacting Health Assured. They said if there's found to be unethical behaviour in poor practice in any BACP accredited service, they will take appropriate action, adding this could result in conditions or even withdrawal of membership. With counsellors, we want to help people. It's in our nature. In terms of experience, it's been incredibly beneficial to me. You don't know who's going to be on the other end of the phone and what they could bring to you. So I know that I've helped every single one. Several of the counsellors we spoke to told us that in spite of the issues raised in this programme, they were proud of some of the work they did at Health Assured. But given employee assistance programmes now make up a significant part of mental health provision in the UK, it means that when people do cope and ask for help, it's crucial that they can get it.
Now, utilisation of EAP has grown since the pandemic, which is great, clearly showing that people our understanding of the importance of their well-being and our seeking help to talk to somebody about it.
Dr. Soraya Bayorak is from the Institute of Employment Studies. She has written several papers on employee assistance programs.
I think fundamentally they do want to help, and I think good ones can help. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people who've had such positive interactions with their EAP and actually taken them out of a really bad place to actually making somebody functional in the workplace. And so when you do hear of these examples, when things have gone quite drastically wrong, I think it sparks concern over a profession that could be really good if it's done well.
After leaving her job as a well-being counsellor at Health Assured, Amy is looking to the future.
Every day I will get someone.
Have you changed your mind? Suddenly become capable?
I've changed my mind. I think that I've evolved as a politician. It didn't go well, goes of admitting and apologising for taking cocaine as a journalist, ending up in third place. People like Boris Johnson, man who effectively locked off 3 years earlier. There are feelings mine, Bojo giving Gobi a job in his cabinet. This is his personal life as on the slide. His marriage to Sarah Barnes breaking down. Gove trying to cheer himself up with a bit of disco dancing. Times he reads Good Morning Britain discuss.
Tory MP Michael Gove stunned clubbers over the weekend when he began busting some moves in a suit on the dance floor of an Aberdeen club.
Caught on camera, possibly a little worse for wear, throwing a few shades and reaching for the lasers.
He is quite unusual and obviously went to a nightclub in Aberdeen. I mean, he is prone to these outbreaks of personality, I suppose. You know, it's not all just kind of ministerial behavior.
Friend of the Daily Telegraph columnist Zoe Strickland.
He does not make a secret of the fact that he likes to kick back and have a good time. It's definitely not just opera, definitely.
Gove partial to a bit of Love Island, Netflix, Taylor Swift music, something to know him well, even recently suggesting, half jokingly I assume, that he might consider going on Celebrity MasterChef.
He's not because he makes tasty secrets, but let's just say there's a lot of help from Mr. Waitrose.
Board games more his thing, according to Zoe Strickland.
We were drinking a both that played chess, and it was both boring and charming because he took forever to make moves. You know, really did not rush himself. He thought through every possible combination. And, you know, of course, he didn't seem like he knew what he was doing, but of course he did.
So what next for Michael Gove? Unlike some of his Conservative colleagues, he isn't planning on stepping down at the next general election. Indeed, the Spectator's Katie Hall thinks if successfully re-elected, Gove, the great survivor, just like he did in the Vote Leave campaign, could become key to shaping the Conservative Party's future.
Will he go through the leadership again? I think those around him would say that is very unlikely, but Michael Gove has ruled out these things before and gone for it. But I think even without a leadership bid, he will want to play a role in terms of the direction the party takes after the election. So if you're thinking about that battle for ideas and those on the right who are gearing up to move their party in a certain direction, I think it's pretty safe bet to say that Michael Gove will be there making a different type of argument.
Profile was presented by Mark Coles. The producer was Charlotte McDonald. This is Radio 4, where it's time for the shipping forecast, issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 172 on Sunday, the 17th of March. There are warnings of gales in Viking, Norfolk Sierra, Southwark Sierra, Fortins, Fisher, Fitzroy, Seoul, Shannon, Rockall and Fair Isle. The general synopsis at midday: low, mid-Atlantic, 990, expected just west of Rockall, 986 by midday tomorrow. The area forecast for the next 24 hours: Viking, Norfolk Sierra, Southwark Sierra, northeast 40s, southeasterly 6 to gale 8, occasionally severe gale 9, except in northeast 40s. Occasional rain or sleet, moderate or poor, occasionally good. Southwest 40s, Cromarty, Forth, Tyne, Dogger. Southeasterly 4 to 6, occasionally 7 in northeast Dogger, veering southerly 3 to 5 later.
Rain or showers, fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Fisher, German bight. Southeasterly 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8 at first in Fisher, veering southwesterly 3 or 4 later in southwest German bight. Occasional rain, fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Humber, Thames. South veering southwest for a time in 3 to 5, occasionally 6 at first in Humber. Rain, then showers, fog patches at first, moderate or good, occasionally very poor at first. Dover, White, Portland, Plymouth, North Biscay. Southwesterly 3 to 5, showers, moderate or good. South Biscay, southeast Fitzroy, variable 2 to 4, in Fairline. And after shipping forecast. Now for the more general forecast, we're joined by Elizabeth Ritchie.
Hello, thank you, Tom. Good evening. Well, it's still mild as we start the new week, but it did turn colder again by the time that we ended, with low pressure still dominant. It is going to be still quite wet at times, notably so in the north and the west. But it has been a largely dry afternoon for most of us today, with cloud and sunny spells captured for many areas teams, and it will be generally more of the same again tomorrow. So in a bit more detail then, overnight tonight, Scotland and Northern Ireland will have cloudy conditions, bands of showers, tracking eastwards, but with spells developing dry by dawn, windy too at all hours. Across southwest England and Wales, there will be showers at times with very low clouds and fog, particularly the coast and hills into tomorrow morning, similar but drier for central and eastern England. And it's mild again tonight with lows of 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, but generally colder than last night for England and Wales. Tomorrow then, for many areas of England away from the southwest, it's a cloudy start with some isolated showers, drier with some sunny spells emerging later. Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's a dry start with bright and sunny spells, but it will cloud over by the end of the day towards the west with rain moving to Northern Ireland by the afternoon. For southwest England and Wales, it's a dry but a murky start to the day with some sunshine and thickening cloud again today by the time it gets to the notable southwesterly wind, and it's still mild 12 to 16 degrees. That's the forecast.
Thank you very much indeed, Elizabeth. The 6 o'clock news is next, then at 1:15. It'll be time for Olivia Williams to bring us her pick of the week.
At last, my chance to bombard you with all the things I love and hate in the world. Brought you tweets from real birds, snoring seals and diaphragm reinstated as science, 2 cases of injustice and 2 of redemption, even song, naughty song, comedy, tragedy, historical, and in the case of the lady killers, controversially hysterical. Some Ghanaian gold, a lamp of blue, something for everyone. So, join me, Olivia Williams, for Pick of the Week this evening at 6:20.
This is Alan Smith. Good evening. Thousands of people have gathered at polling stations across Russia to protest against an election they say is rigged.
I'm not alone. There are a lot of around a lot of people who think that Russia can be another country with another future.
The US says it's made arrangements to rescue Americans stranded in Haiti. Also tonight, memories of the singer-songwriter Steve Harlem, who's died at the age of 70. Dozens of voters in Russia have been arrested for taking part in a silent protest against an election they say is rigged. Anti-Kremlin campaigners had urged people to gather at polling stations at noon to vote against Vladimir Putin or spoil their ballot. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg reports from Moscow.
Outside polling station 1321, it didn't look like an election. There was a full-scale carnival with Russians in colourful costumes bagging frying pans and soup labels as they danced. The cast of entertainers was a large one, but when it comes to who will be president, there's only one star of the show. in an election tightly controlled by the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin was pretty much unbeatable. But today, St. Petersburg held a symbolic protest. Opposition leaders had called on Russians to flood polling stations at midday to vote against Putin or to spoil their ballots. Before his death in prison last month, Alexei Navalny had backed the protester. I'd never seen queues like this before on election day, and it took courage to take part. The authorities had warned that large crowds at noon could be viewed as illegal gatherings. But not his real name told me why he was taking part.
As a policy, we faces a lot of people which comes to today and to see that I'm not alone in my political views and that there are a lot of Muslims and other people who believe that Russia can be another country with another future.
Meanwhile, across town, Muscovites continued to place flowers on the grave of Alexei Navalny, who had wanted to be Russia's leader. There, among the floral tributes, was a ballot paper. In place of Putin's name, someone had written Navalny. And on another piece of paper, there was this message: "He's the candidate we want."
Reports from parts of Ukraine occupied by Russia say some voters have been intimidated by armed men. But some Ukrainians have come up with novel ways of resisting the pressure, as our Eastern Europe correspondent Sarah Rainsford reports.
When Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion, he claimed falsely that people in those regions needed protecting from Kiev. 2 years on, the Kremlin wants to show crowds of grateful new citizens of Russia there voting for Putin. But I've spoken to people who call the whole vote a charade and describe huge pressure to participate, including from Russian soldiers. Alex runs the resistance movement Yellow Ribbon, and he told his activists that burning the washing material in protest, hiding their passports, even putting them through the washing machine to destroy them. All that to avoid electing the president of a country they never wanted to be part of.
Russian nationals have also been protesting and casting their ballots in cities around the world. In Berlin, Alexei Navalny's wife Yulia was greeted with applause when she joined a long queue outside the Russian embassy. Will Grant.
After weeks of a security and humanitarian crisis in Haiti, in which many embassies have airlifted out all non-essential staff, the US State Department has now laid on a charter flight between Cap-Haitian and Florida for Americans still stuck in the country. Around 24 US citizens could take the opportunity to leave, including one man who told the BBC he was going to receive medical attention in Miami. The extent of the humanitarian emergency has turned Cap-Haitian into the main safe haven in the country for people fleeing the violence of the Prince. UN estimates that more than 350,000 people are internally displaced, and that figure is also rising by the day.
The Transport Secretary Mark Harper has refused to say whether or not the Conservatives will accept more donations from a businessman accused of making racist comments about the MP Diane Abbott. Frank Hester has already given £10 million to the party. Reports say he offered a further £5 million. Here's our political correspondent Helen Platt.
Government ministers have faced uncomfortable questions about Frank Hester and his donations in recent days after the Prime Minister said that his reported comments about Diane Abbott were racist. The Tories have been resisting calls to hand back the £10 million. They've also refused to say if more money is on the way. Speaking to Sunday with Laura Koonsberg, the Transport Secretary Mark Harper didn't offer much by way of clarification.
We've declared the donation that was made. I'm obviously not involved in donations to the party as the Transport Secretary. I'm involved with. If in the future there's a future donation, that will be declared in the usual way. But that's a hypothetical question. We looked at, there were processes for looking at donations because we are declaring them.
Asked if the Conservative Party had a problem with race, he gave a more definitive answer. Absolutely not, he said. Mr Hester's comments have also caused problems for Labour by putting Diane Abbott back in the spotlight. She remains suspended from the parliamentary party nearly a year after she claimed Jewish and Irish traffic would be separate racism, for which she's apologised. The veteran Labour MP Harry
Harriet Harman added her voice to those who said they would like to see Mazabit back in the field.
I very strongly support Keir Starmer's drive against anti-Semitism. It had to be rooted out of the party, but I would be sad if Diane Abbott ends her political career, and she has been an amazing trailblazer, not a member of the Labour Party.
Another senior Labour figure, Jonathan Ashworth, said the investigation into Ms Abbott was an independent process that should be respected.
The Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, has promised that the NHS will be a central part of his party's general election campaign. He told delegates at the Gates Great Conference in York that getting people off waiting lists and fit and healthy was finding
New health services, open to all regardless of wealth, give people the freedom they need to live their lives as they choose. A well-functioning NHS is essential for individual freedom, social justice, and for national prosperity.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said no amount of international pressure will stop his country achieving all the goals of the war against Hamas. He hit back at the leader of the US Senate, Democrat Chuck Schumer, who called the Israeli leader and hopes to continue peace. Mr. Netanyahu has rejected calls to avoid a military offensive in Rafah in southern Gaza. From Jerusalem, our correspondent Mark Lowe reports.
This was vintage Netanyahu, a leader under mounting pressure from his cabinet, criticism of his country, and exasperation from his Western allies, has chosen to dig in and hit back. At a cabinet meeting, he insisted the Israeli army would enter Rafah, the only way, he said, to eliminate Hamas and return the remaining Israeli hostages. Rejecting warnings over an offensive in an area where 1.4 million Gazans are sheltering, he said civilians would be evacuated first, and he turned his ire on those calling for restraint.
Is your memory so short? So quickly you forgot about October the 7th, the worst massacre committed against Jews since the Holocaust. So quickly you're ready to deny Israel the right to defend itself against the monsters of Hamas. So quickly you lost your moral compass.
The US says it has not seen any detailed plan for Rafah from the Israeli government. Moving such large numbers would take time and troops. Israel is preparing to send a delegation to new ceasefire talks in Doha, a potential sign of progress. It is possible, even likely, that Mr. Netanyahu is sounding tough on Rafah to up the pressure on
Complete nostalgia time.
Da-dum, 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 da-da, da-da.
You know where we're going, right? Get your magnifying glasses out. We're going to close today's episode with this. Wow.
Henry Mancini would have been celebrating his 100th birthday this year, so Radio 2 wondered impressions of his life and times in between the years, and revealed how Mancini had cancelled for some neglected talent and some much needed diversity.
You know, the tenor sax, Laz Johnson played an ad-lib solo, an ad-lib jazz solo on a record. You know, that's reaching for heaven.
You know, one other thing that Scott often talked about with Hamlin, so that was around 61 studios in LA. There were no African American musicians, zero. And Henry had discovered a saxophone player named Laz Johnson, and Henry hired him to do the score. I would propose that a lot of the success of that song was the sound that Laz brought to it. Very unique. And with the success of that, suddenly Laz was on every session, and it opened the doors for African American musicians to come into LA studios. A few years later, Quincy Jones, who had become the superstar as a producer, he wanted to jump into the film score business. One of the Universal executives called Henry and said, "Do you think Quincy Jones could handle a film score?" The question he was asking was, "Do you think black jazz musicians could handle this?" And Henry said, "Are you kidding? He's Quincy Jones. Hire him." And for that, Quincy contributes Henry Mancini to opening the door for him to have a film score career.
Get back his good name, his 16 grand that was extorted from him by the post office, and the £2,000 legal cost demanded by the court.
I read in the newspaper this morning, and according to what
news this morning regarding the new legislation coming in. So I think it is absolutely wonderful also to kind of support market and overview.
And which bits strikes you as most important? That element of the wrongful convictions will be instantly quashed, or this some final offer if you want to take it up with 600,000.
I think the whole package really, I think first thing was obviously to get the name clear, which obviously in their own countries, stigma, which they can carry out with you. And I think secondly is this compensation. And I think obviously a lot of, sadly, a lot of people things are passed away. They never going to see the day. So I think from one to a year, I think it's looking at the thing that we find it clear. That's been absolutely perfect.
You've spoken to us over the past few weeks about the impact it has on your family. You've been emotional at times. You've said that you're now in counselling over what's happened to you. Does it feel, after such a long, exhausting, emotional, tormenting road, that this is a momentous moment?
That is what I already hear that is what my marketing will be finally clear. And actually girlfriend, and as the chef mentioned earlier, they hadn't been before Mr. Bench, what in the post office, none of these could have come out, and we would have had to hang out for years to get ourselves for the life.
So you're feeling happy about this. Overall though, where are you at, Ash? I was concerned last time I spoke to you. Where are you at with your mental health?
No, there's two sessions, and it's really focused. I think we're going to talk about that. So
you were getting a lot of support and community from people that perhaps at the time didn't realise what you got through, what we're going through.
Yes, obviously, I have coming through from things that we were able to say at the time because we had the rumble. But now we recently we take care of other colleges. And we are receiving phone calls from various people as well. The festival that people mentioned is I was awarded a ECT award last week up in London. Physical community, i.e. carrying on through trading everything through all the problems we had, and also through COVID. So we were awarded, I was given an award last week as the Plaza Park Hotel in London.
Wonderful. I'm pleased to hear that. And what is next for you?
Well, to carry on and to train really and to sort of see
Even while he was being accused and falsely accused, still made sure everyone got their attention. Community services without having to pay. I want to celebrate a triumph in giving the Lord the Mayor kick up the backside. This time tackling a group of women who, true to form, have been consistently abused, patronised and dismissed by society. Intrepid investigative journalist Sam Payne put herself at considerable risk, confronting a violent rapist and murderer with the truth of what he'd done. Then, against the result, broadcast the results of the excellent podcast. Please hear about it.
I've learned of an allegation that Emma was groomed shortly before she went missing. The practice of shimmering billboards not far from where we're sitting today. A man raped her that night in that man.
No one.
We filed a crime report about damage to your van.
Let's update it, saying I've got 9 children, I'm 37, I've had a uterine prolapse, my doctor won't tell me how to stop me having another baby. How does that make you feel? How would that make you perhaps even susceptible to eugenic food? And if there's anything that I can do with the book, it's about putting these people back into their context and actually saying to modern people, you think you would have been so much better than this. Are you absolutely sure that you would have been?
The upside is that universal access to contraception is a good thing to come out of a Nazi sympathising eugenicist who, fun fact, disinherited her only son for marrying a bespectacled woman, just in case her myopia was a heritable characteristic. Her children with glasses. Yikes. Anyone
concluded English O-level in 1984 might have joined in with Wednesday's gorgeous heat of the day. I called this morning Morning's Minion, Kingdom of Daylight's Dominion, dapping your dawn walking. Poet Gerard Manley Hopkins' description of a wind collar, or as most of us know it, the kestrel. Wind collar is the perfect name for a bird with such breathtaking aerial control. Watch a kestrel hovering over a road verge, and you can only marvel at the precision of its movements. Tails and wing feathers are adjusted minutely to changes in wind speed. Its head remains motionless, allowing the bird to pinpoint the presence of rodents. Its vision is tuned to ultraviolet light, allowing the bird to trace moles by the urine trails they leave behind in the grass. And I hope all 55-year-olds with one voice leapt up and shouted at the radio, Kingdom of Daylight's Dauphin! Dauphin, not the Minion! Poor miscreant Gerard Manley Hopkins. By the way, is it time we changed the name of the show to X, the Daily Bird called formerly known as Twinkle? A bit more poetry in mention now, from a sensational show called Tracking the Planet. It was recommended to me by listener Dr. Susanna Payson, with whom I briefly tracked spectacled bears in the cloud forest of Bolivia back in August. The show is presented by Emily Knight, whose calm voice made me believe that if we track the animals and learn what they have to teach us, everything's going to be alright. The idea that everything on this planet is in some way connected, that the planet itself can be understood as a kind of living, breathing organism in its own right, with every living thing playing a role, used to belong to the world of mysticism, or perhaps philosophy. But these days, it's becoming increasingly accepted as good.
Starling to that. I think that was one of my lifetime achievements.
Sign it, okay, sign it myself.
If you end up in power, what would be Chancellor Rachel Reeves' instinct? I just want the chance to turn things around, and I want to bring the energy bills down. I haven't really got any idea how. I just want the chance to turn things around. There's one thing to know about me. I'm going to damage the Labour Party. I'm not going to take any responsibility, to be honest. But I don't like doing work properly. We work with businesses to make sure we're the worst government since the Second World War. And I make no apology for running out of ideas, being insecure. I just want the chance to turn things around. Turn around, turn around, to turn things around. Turn around, turn around, to turn things around. I just want the chance to turn things around. And I want to bring the energy bills down. My council house was turned into a playground. I just want the chance to turn things around.
My world clashed at 5:45 on Monday morning as former Children's Laureate Michael Morpurgo popped up on Farming Today, which usually keeps me up to date with the politics of animal feed and subsidies. Claire and Michael Morpurgo have a project to bring inner city kids to a farm.
What are you going to do next?
First I'm gonna put a little hole in the mud and just stand on this so I can just make the hole, and after it go back and forwards like a V shape.
This one's got lots of lovely healthy roots, doesn't it?
No, yeah, that'll do.
My name is Claire Morpurgo.
And I'm Michael, and together with Claire, we started Farm to City Children. Although the idea of it was Claire's, the point is that every single tree here has been planted by kids, so they're making the countryside. It's one of the things I think you have to learn. The countryside is nature. You know, what is this planted here by God? We didn't have to build whoever it grew because the people lived around. I mean, you know, making food here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Can I ask you what you're doing? We've just been planting some trees for some animals and for the environment.
You feel quite worms when you do it because they don't like being in the ground when there's rain.
And when there's worms, it means that the soil is usually like high in nutrients. That's a good sign when you see worms. Is that something that you learned from being here? Yeah, I didn't know that before, so yeah, the time that I've been here, I've learned a lot of stuff.
Especially about the environment and about the animals. So,
how do you know what type of tree it is?
Which one's which?
Here, teachers
tell us about their testing outcomes, that children who particularly unable to speak up in public, who just didn't want to have their voice heard of the others, very, very good teamwork, joining in, offering to help, that has improved tremendously.
You have to say that it's very good officer to learn more in a weekend than a year inside your school, because it's all new. But what's really important is that the thing we grow and create that happens sometimes, and they have a much, much better understanding of that. They can make up their minds about it themselves without sort of shouting about it, because it is complex. And how do we manage that?
Just get my cardboard shield and just put it over the tree. It protects the tree. So like rabbits and foxes definitely would off.
How much do you like getting really lucky?
I like it every minute. If you want to be a farmer, go to the gym.
Contrast that with the harrowing episode of Law and Majesty, a show I love because I became embarrassed to be and I could now be chatting about the finer points of the law with presenter Joshua Rosenberg over a glass of Alvina's Flower, like a law, a crowd not summoned me to the stage. But this week, Law and Majesty taking moving examples of success and failure in trying to divert young boys away from the lives of David Gilroy, for me to their imprisonment.
And if I think of one particular case, a child that I met at 14 when I was at the youth court, and the first time meeting him it was quite clear that he had some issues with communication, but any issues that he had in school would be put down to bad behaviour.
And he'd been excluded from ordinary
He'd been
lessons.
excluded from ordinary lessons. He was exceptional at maths, but really struggled in anything that involved social communication. And he was having outbursts in school, which could be described as sensory sort of overload, inability to express his emotions. So that was coming out in anger, and his needs essentially weren't met in school. And so through our work with him, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, much to his mum's relief, but also frustration, because by the time she got the diagnosis, he was past getting the support that he needed for him to stay in school, and he was placed in a pupil referral unit. Equally, he struggled in a pupil referral unit because he had no education background. And 4 years later, I was representing him when he'd been charged with murder, joint enterprise murder, and by the stabbing of another child who tragically died, and he was subsequently convicted of manslaughter on a joint enterprise basis, where he wasn't present for the murder. Actually,
And sent to prison.
The kid in this extract thought quite honestly that sort of just because Law would have the chance to spend some time down on the farm with Colonel Bradley and his son. It's not simple that. Thankfully, there was a positive case of a young man referred to as Jay, dismantling the violent survival strategies forged into him throughout his life. Till expected to last around 16 years.
I remember having a conversation with you back then about that I'd never had a fight.
Yeah, and I didn't understand
You
that.
know, how can that be possible? And I said, because all behaviour is learned, and I was brought up in a peaceful household. You weren't. I'd learned a different way of being. I do remember part of the conversation. I think I asked you if you wanted to be a parent, and you said, yeah, of course. And then I said something like, are you the kind of man you'd like your daughter to marry? You remember that?
Yeah.
What did you say?
No, no.
You said something like, I don't even want to know about those kind of men.
I don't want to know that such a person.
And then I said, there's good news here. One, you're not a man yet. Two, you've just decided who you don't want to become. And you've got plenty of time to become the right kind of man.
We visited another organisation, and there was a youth worker there at the time who was dealing with me. And then a couple of years later, whilst we were
Hold on a second. Alice Wicks. Oh, hi, Kate. Kate? Yes, I'm fine. What's wrong with you? One, two. Just dropped off on Chris. So you're all right. I would have dropped in on you yesterday, but I was out all day. Really, don't worry. It was just having a bad day, that's all. Can't be crazy Dad hadn't told you. Well, you wanted to tell me. I'm your sister. I'm here for you. I know. I'm fine. Don't try to downplay it. I'm still kicking myself and not warning you about Harry.
I knew it could be fantastic, but Dad convinced me you were happy, and I was. Of course you were. You couldn't see what a destructive personality we had. We never recognise ourselves in other people. Anyway, my Robin did not feel bad for spinning that trouble. And the Rotary Club did. He said he was off to Great Gables with some golden top. Really? Maybe I misunderstood. Not necessarily. Harry should do when I asked him about it earlier. Really? Really weird. He practically ran out of the room. Really? I mean, what do you say? Silly? Possibly. Don't be anything I noticed either. Well, tell us then. Well, he's just been very perky recently. Perky? Yeah. Dauntingly cheerful. Last week, he complimented me on my new tie-dye jumpsuit. No, seriously. He didn't seem to himself in the bathroom. What? Start me up by the Rolling Stones. Tea? Well, the purplish tint to his aura does suggest a surge in passion. What? A woman? I don't imagine it's a man. Oh no, but I think that's what he's really up to on Friday. Seeing someone, auras never lie. Plus, the aftershave is pretty overpowering. For a curtain usually. This is our father we're talking about. It was to be expected at some point. No, I hadn't expected it so soon. And that's my theory, anyway. How can we be sure that you're right?
So, according to my researchers, the greatest age ever reliably recorded for a horse is 62.
Dad! Oh my God, what if you prefer it that way? Keep it private. Well, you just said we weren't talking or seeing anyone. We're not, but if you do that, there's only one way to bring out Pete. What? Dad.
Well, listen.
There's something we need to know. Well, we need to, but we'd like to. And there's no reason not to tell her, although if you don't want to. Alice, but I'm not saying you don't have to. I felt I had a strange idea of what we're talking about. Well, go on. What do I mean? You ask it.
Ask me what?
Are you seeing a woman? Romantically, I mean. Is that why you've been acting weird these last few days?
Weird?
Like singing in the bathroom, or wearing a aftershave, or telling me you were at the Rotary Club, while telling me you were going to go dating.
Ah.
Look, if it's wrong, or if you think it's none of business.
No.
Just be honest.
I was thinking.
What? You were?
It wasn't anything serious. After you came over, Alice, I told the lady in question I was not right.
What do you mean operating over?
Well, I don't want to start stirring up painful feelings about your mother. It's not on your time.
But now I just feel guilty.
Yes.
Of course, I want it to happen. What did you look like for everything?
Alice, of course.
What did you say to me before? Live your life. I really took that to heart. How many of us can be happy if we don't let ourselves to move on?
You mean?
I wouldn't have said it otherwise. And I agree wholeheartedly. Thanks for asking.
Well, it's extremely sweet of you, Bert. But like I say, it wasn't anything serious.
Couldn't you arrange?
No. I suppose I could. A bit awkward.
Oh, you have to, Dad. You should have done that.
Yeah, perhaps.
Where is the lucky woman, by the way?
Oh, that'd be telling.
Come on, Dad. Don't be so courting. I thought we were being honest.
Yes, we are. But I don't know if she'll agree to meet me again. So let's just see how it goes.
For bankers, there is only one rule. Do not lose money. And then, in the 2008 financial crash, I sat there in the bank when the financial crash hit, and I felt really sorry. Admittedly, for myself. But it was a start. All I cared about was how it would impact me and then Pakistan. During that period, my dad lost over £100,000 in his pension.
my dad's fault, of course. He picked the wrong investment. He should have been more prepared. He should have seen the crash coming. Do you know how they say investments can go up as well as down? Well, they can also go down as well as down, and down again. Even though sometimes they suggested that they go up and up again. Dad was made to feel as if it was all his fault. Banking, I did this to people every single day. Everything that went against how my dad brought me up. So after avoiding massive abuse, I started to question if I'm really good at my job as a bank. Was I good or a bad thing? I decided to put this nice clip, and I sat and wrote my resignation letter. Well, I didn't know it was a letter, so 4 days between them. And then the bank did something that all banks do when a competent member of staff who stick to their ways of working resign. They offered me more money. And finally, for the first time, I did something that today would make my dad proud to listen to this story. But at that moment in time, horrified him. I said, put up the man up But the bank wanted to dangle that one final carrot in front of me in order to stay. A promotion working at the sister bank in New Zealand. Although they forgot to tell their sister bank when indeed any members of the organisation, I was travelling over 11,000 miles for the interview. I arrived and they'd already filled the position the previous day. I'd literally moved heaven to the other side of the earth for them, and this was my wake-up call. Financially, it's going to be screwed. But I said no to more cash, more stuff, and more revenue. You know, now I say that out loud. No, sure, he did the right thing. He did the right thing. And I said yes to starting that journey to do my true sense, to until. So I left the backstabbing, sleazy world of banking for a complete change in the world of stand-up comedy. Why comedy? No. Before I resigned from the bank, they paid me to do a sales course at a local college, and I changed people on the submission documents and comedy writing. I'm just thinking of someone in the bank HR department gave me a voice after I left and said, is this guy having a laugh? Every Thursday between 7 and 9. Do you know what made that comedy piece amazing? The bank was taken. Finally something so I did a comedy showcase at the end of the course, and the teacher says, Stuart, you have to stick with it. Not with the comedy, with the course, because that was terrible. I'd finally found my purpose, and I was going to conquer the world. And then I went into comedy when the first start was literally rolled. But comedy gave me something the government and certainly banking didn't. The freedom just to do something I love. And unlike the treasury and mostly in banking, the irony is, to become who I wanted to be, I didn't have to pretend to be someone I wasn't. It cost me £1,000. I know some people in this audience will pay 5p for a bag. I once paid £1,000, as everyone else in the bank had done. So I needed one. It's a man bag. It's not even unisex. Mind you, if you took this to me, I don't think you'd get any sex. Again, I wanted to be part with everyone else, part of a higher social status. This bag was worth more than all the crap that was inside it. It was like carrying my state debt around in a mine bag. I noticed when walking to a comedy gig, this magnificent £1,000 man bag, awesome, thing of beauty. Woman in the front, what's your name? Laura. See this? Don't touch it. See this designer bag? After 6 months, and I was alone. I only noticed when my mini cheddar started falling. But it's fine. I had my receipt for the bag, for the mini cheddars. They were lost to me. So you've got a bag for £1,000 if you've got your receipt.
this is what I did. I walked into the shop, and this is what I wanted. I hear I bought this bag 6 months ago, it's got a loan on it. Well, that shouldn't have happened. It's a bullet, there's no excuse to it. The goods are clearly not what we thought. That's not a problem. What's that? I hear I bought this bag 6 months ago, it's got a loan on it. We were in the shop, you've been using that bag excessively. Not every day, yes. And I thought, well, it never came with a label saying I could only use it in bank holidays. And considering I used to work for a bank holidays are the only days I'll not be using it. If I pay £1,000 for a bag, I expect to be able to use it every day. I expect if I'm caught in gunfire, bullets will bounce off that bag. I expect if in the event of a nuclear war, I get inside this bag, and when I get back out, there's nothing left on the planet except these cockroaches and that bag. She says, have you been through the first bag? Who puts a bag within a bag? You don't buy a sports car and drive it about with the garage still attached. She says, you've been through that on your shoulder, okay? And I went, sorry. Maybe you're right. It's my fault. I've been abusing my handbag. They made me feel that I was actually in the wrong. I'd walked right into a trap. If I wanted a bag for life, I should have gone.
That's the sound. My name is Jazzy. And this is the sound of us. Good evening. You're listening to the smooth, dulcet tones of me, internationally renowned jazz, and the cacophonic rapping of my head. I'm here to bring the music around to celebrities like you. I know from a distance you may seem out of touch, but deep down, I'm just like you. And if there's one thing in this world we surely all experience, there are so many different seats that family can take. Inspired by the notion of weekend. How cool would it be to have all those extra hours? As for my family, I come from a long line of artists and self-employed. Every time you pick the phone to the ancient indigenous communities, picture my great grandmother visiting the city. All experts agree. Despite this, I was the first people not to complete my degree. My rejection of our family's heritage to my brother swore never to speak to him again. The appropriate music of my that is children's music. When I received a message from him urging me to
Don't holler in the door like a fool, boy. Come in. Another thing. Sound reckless. Please, you don't have to do this, Kristen. Don't shoot me. I told you before. Oh, God. My gun does. No. Still got it. Well, precisely what actually like. What's never occurred. Make it look so easy, brother. This is the bountiest kingdom of bloodline. Turn your back on it. No, brother, you abandoned our activity. I just went down my own path. Is that so? All right. Follow me. Now, this carriage. Oh, the castle doors swinging open. See, brother, I never lost my skills. Baby level stuff. 6-inch seals on stonemasonry. Oh, well, what you do it? I love what you've done with your office. I said, fracture. You heard
what I found. American key ventilation systems for control power. Okay, you know I got this feeling that but I like this. Is a father's last image of his son. What is it? Why do you think I summoned you here? I'm dying, Jess. What is it? I'm simply become an actress. I'm disappointment. But not to say I've been exposed to more disappointment in my life than this human brain can endure. I have just tasted it. I can show you I'm worthy of your legacy, brother. You abandoned your training in this nobility art. And for what? Music? A vessel for vanity and selfishness and eating a big bag of pride. Oh, Bunsen, I don't understand what my father means. I've been staring into this mirror for 3 hours now, and I can't see even a hint of vanity. I'm not a narcissist, am I? Definitely not. You explain that in all 7 of your autobiographies. Exactly. Can I make it so clear in my latest single? How could something tell you? I'll never succeed. First it is not inside you. About that. I can't have my father leave this world disappointed in me. Well, why don't you try to phone your company? Record the soundscape for a film or something. Yes, I like it. I'm certain that this family tradition still matters to me. And wait, 2 birds with 1 stone. Why don't I do it for a charity advert to show him once and for all that I'm completely unself-involved? God, I'm a brilliant genius. They are here. Yes, they're all here. They're definitely all here, Dad. Cousin Brentwood with the wooden leg. Yes, this is here. Oh, and now to Patty, who had her voice box replaced with a pencil sharpener for a bed. Yes, she's here too. You always did have a potty mouth, Patty. And what about my mother-in-law, Megan? Always well dressed, always late. Oh, yes, she's late as always, but she's just walking in right now, wearing those fancy heels, no doubt. Careful not to slip on the stone masonry floor, Megan. I'm so glad to be surrounded by people like that. In fact, it's profound sense of family pride. It's giving me my sight back.
Oh, well, no need to look further, no need to guess. My vision is returning. I can see.
Where is everyone? Did you make the sound of heels on stone masonry, Jack? I'm sorry, Father, I've been using my Foley props. Yes, Jack, that's incredible. Only a Foley master could produce that noise. I don't understand. I didn't complete my training. How could I get that Foley from me, son? Not for yourself or for a big bag hound called Harvey. It was gripped by a mysterious disease. Their bodies and coffins piled from mile long because the ground was frozen solid to a depth of 2 meters. And he would return no more to that moment for the woman, but to the memory when his innocence was pierced by the larger world beyond. And think, we are all suffering bodies, flesh and blood, underneath all else.
A Night in My House was written by Eileen Chu and read by Chaik Chan and Eileen Chu. The producer was Jeremy Osborne, and it was a Sweet Talk production for BBC Radio 4. On feedback next this evening, Radio 4's controller Mohit Bakaya will be Andrea Catherwood's guest, responding to your comments on planned schedule changes here on this station. That's in a couple of minutes after the news.
Let's focus on you. Make yourself comfortable, clear your mind, and take a slow, deep breath in. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4, and again, using the music as your guide. To help you find the moment for yourself, join me, Izzy Judd, and our meditation guides as we tackle everything from stress to gratitude. Music and meditation podcast. Listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC News at 8 o'clock. Russia's Central Electoral Commission says Vladimir Putin is winning the presidential election with just under 88% of the vote. Polls closed earlier after 3 days of voting. Here's Danny Aberhart.
That Vladimir Putin would win this election was never in doubt. Any genuine opposition politician had been excluded previously. Some were disqualified from standing. Other, more high-profile Putin critics are in jail, exiled, or, like Alexei Navalny, dead. Those ordinary Russians who oppose Mr. Putin appeared to heed a call from Mr. Navalny's allies to queue at polling stations every day to select any other candidate or spoil their ballots. Meanwhile, abroad, Mr. Navalny's widow queued up to vote in the Russian embassy in Berlin. She said she'd written her late husband's name on the ballot.
A senior cabinet minister has denied the Conservative Party has a problem with race after accepting at least £10 million to a donor who's accused of racism. The Transport Secretary, Mark Harper, told the BBC his party welcomes members whatever their race. In Brady Plan,
佢電話咧，我打電話俾佢佢唔聽嘅。
I can't believe
Okay.
I'm going to do something I've been looking into for
佢
50
最
years.
激情嘅咩？
Omnibus edition of the Arctic. What is going on here? Whose crazy idea is this to move it? Why didn't you give us a thought on this? Why did you put it out on a general frequency? You must be attentive, BBC and horrified.
This is John
你可唔可以問佢咧？
Oxford chat.
佢嗰個佢未有收到啲人去應你咁嘅。
The Archers has been a
跟住佢有個 list 嘅，
for many
叫
years.
佢 update 個 list，即係話邊個人講咗話你，邊個人未通知佢，
Jane
叫佢
from Devon.
update 個
I'm
list。
76 and have been listening for half a century to Radio 4. Have I
Who's it
really
now?
got to
Graham
go
Devon.
via a smartphone to listen to BBC Sounds, thus incurring extra expense
因為佢今日食咗一盒，
etc. is
但
so
但係因為佢尋
expensive?
日冇食，
Well,
所以我
joining
叫佢
tonight
今日
is
食
the
兩盒。
Radio 4 controller, Will Scott. Thank you so much for joining us at the show.
或者前日
Seems
食
to
冇
me
食
like
啦，
this
總之
afternoon's
佢一日有一盒，有一日冇食
schedule
嘅，
from
冇食到。
April does look quite different from the current one. It's
Slightly
quite
different.
an overhaul. Why
Slightly
have it
different.
done-
I'm not sure it's an overhaul in the way that if you go back
哦，拜拜
focus
拜
on
拜。
memory, most of our Radio 4 listeners will know James Boyle had a quite dramatic overhaul of the Radio 4 schedule, which is the schedule that essentially I inherited from my predecessors too. And most of that, the majority of that stays in place. We're not messing around with that. We absolutely want to keep the fun programs 8:35 And we have to be really careful about this stuff. I really, really do understand how sensitive and important it is to respect the schedule and respect people's relationship with it. So we have made some tweaks and some changes, and that's because since I arrived as controller in 2019, the speech market for audio has changed so dramatically. Podcasting has exploded onto the scene. We've got other stations now doing speech audio, and that has had an impact on linear listening. And so what we've tried to do here is to respond, to a lot of audience research. We obviously haven't done this going in blind. We have tried to talk to a lot of audiences, but try to do certain things to primarily give the audience, essentially give them the presence they need.
Investment fraud.
And how much money is being stolen?
Well, again, another massive increase in 2020. £85 million was reported stolen in crypto fraud. Last year, that had more than doubled to 175 million, although that was actually down substantially from 22, when 330 million was stolen through crypto fraud. Now, one of the victims from last year is Pat from South Wales, who's in her 80s. She had her life savings stolen, but following a Money Box investigation, she was eventually refunded her money. Pat's now in hospital, but I've been to meet her son.
John, hello, hello, I'm John and I'm from Clarence.
Lots of photos here, some from a long time ago of a glamorous young woman in a lovely black and white shot, some more recently. Who are we looking at here? Who's this?
So this is my mum, she's called Pat, and she's quite a glamorous woman. This is like an acting shot. Looks like so my mum was very creative. I mean, she was well to property, she left school at 15, went to London, went to Brixton, then came back, got her dad, and then she started going to business really, which is from a little counter in my father's shop to quite a big business, which is about 15 people. Then she got this house.
That's a really lovely picture you painted, Mum. I'm obviously here not for the good things that happened to your mum, but the bad thing that happened to your mum about a year or so ago.
Dad sort of get dementia and a series of many strokes, and she was looking after him. And then she saw an advert for cryptocurrency, and unfortunately she clicked it, which was the biggest mistake of her life. And then I think the scammer got in touch, I think, the same day, and it was a woman called Sam.
So ruthless was the scammer at grooming and manipulating Pat, and over the following 3 weeks or so, she was subject to dozens of calls and kept on the phone for hours. During that time, the scammer stole Pat's husband's identity and used it to open an account with an online payments company. Then she tricked Pat into making more than a dozen transfers, totaling more than £70,000, her life savings, to that new account, which the scammer then used to buy cryptocurrency. Pat never saw a penny of her money again.
Basically, like her life fell apart. She thought she had to sell the house because, they didn't have any money to upkeep the house or to live. She didn't really want to talk about it because she felt that it was a betrayal, and she didn't want people to know about it because she'd always been like a strong woman all her life. I watched my mum sort of fall apart because basically this scumbag took that away. And why do you do these things? I mean, it's sociopaths, they're scammers. I mean, I'm a Guardian reader. I string them all up.
Your mum's in hospital now, but the investigation that we did, your mum has now been refunded with £71,850. So your mum's got her life savings back. Talk to me about the moment when you heard mum's getting her money back.
I was like really relieved. I went to see mum and she just smiled, and I haven't seen her smile, for like, a year or so. She just really smiled. It was really lovely.
So your mum's still in hospital, but she's getting a lot better, and she's up for having a chat with us, so we're going to go and see her, right?
Yeah, we can go and see her now.
After a 5-minute drive to the local hospital, we find Pat being looked after by the nurses and doctors and looking frail, but with a smile on her face.
Well, it came as a hellish shock, really, not a bit of a shock, because I've been living in a house which was very quiet, my husband and my daughter who were both unwell, and she came on like a friend, and I couldn't believe it, you know. I mean, you can take that in my word. Although I'm ever so grateful to you, actually, isn't it? Because it's the other one, Robbie and Theatre. So I'd like to salute you.
Well, I didn't get that. That's the criminology. The part of therefore seems to be rising more victims of war and
Yes, there's a definite increase. This is because ordinary individuals, ordinary folk are beginning to invest in areas such as cryptocurrency. The risk profile is changing fast. It's no longer the realm of a niche investor in the rich. Anyone can do it, and they're encouraged to. This is also something that's advertised on social media, so it's in people's faces all the time.
Yes, and the amount doubled in 4 years, but actually last year, the year before last, it was higher and it went down last year. Why was there that spike of 330 million sterling in 2020?
Now, this is really interesting. This is a hangover from COVID and lockdowns in 2020 and 2021. Now, investments naturally are relatively long term, and fraudsters play on that fact. So when they take your money and they don't give it back, it's seen as part of the normal context. And then by the time people realise that they've been defrauded of their money and it's not coming back, it could be 1 or 2 years later. And this is what has led to this rising frauds.
Yes, you mentioned Bitcoin becoming more effective, if you like, and of course well, are you ready to get naked in the North Sea? I'm certainly not, I can tell you. But each September at sunrise around the equinox, those seals are joined by over 1,000 others to plunge into the freezing water naked in that North Sea dip, which raises money for the mental health charity Mind. Now, listener Jackie Higginson from Sunderland has organised this event since 2012 as one of her jobs as a self-employed worker. But this year, she's running into a problem with the Department for Work and Pensions. Along with thousands of other low-income self-employed people, she recently lost her tax credits from HMRC and had to pay universal credit instead. Now, that's run by the Department for Work and Pensions. But it told her that universal credit rules will count the money she raises for charity as her income, even though she did all the profits in the mine. And as a result, in the months around her years most of the year, she would be stripped of her universal credit taxes. Now, Jackie, lovely to talk to you, and I must ask you first.
Hello,
What's the appeal of plunging naked into the North Sea with 1,000 strangers?
Well, the North East Initiative is so much more than just running naked into the sea. It's a celebration, really. It's a celebration of life, and of nature, of health, of courage, and of freedom.
I'm being told. How much has you raised for mine since 2012?
Since 2012, together we have raised over £140,000 for mental health charity.
That's extraordinary. And how does it work? People buy a ticket from Eventbrite. What happens to that money?
That's right, yeah. I call it a pledge. I like to think of it as a pledge. But as the event grew, it did have to be public ticket event for safety reasons. So I invite you to make a pledge of £16 to take part. And all profits, all proceeds from that donation will go directly to Tyneside and Northumberland Mine.
Yes.
I also offer a donate what you can option for the low wage so that it's available to all.
People can donate less or indeed more if they can afford it. But you pay yourself a small amount. The money from ticket sales is paid to you and it's in a separate account but in your name. When you claim tax credit, was HMRC happy with that?
Yes, it was never a problem. Mm-hmm.
So, but now you've got universal credit, as a person at the job centre, they're called a work coach, you report to them. What did they say to you about it?
I had my first meeting with my work coach a couple of months ago, and I was told that I must declare all of the money that I funded as my personal income. I was told that I was running a business and that it was my choice to give the money away to charity.
And can you appeal against that?
I've tried to
discuss it, but there doesn't seem to be any opening for discussion.
Right.
And the only option I was given was to make a note in my journal explaining the situation and to request that my case be referred to a decision.
And what's the next effect of that happening with all that money that was happening to raise last year, for example, with all that help?
Well, in total we raised almost 40,000, but some of that is raised via a fundraising page, so it doesn't all come to me.
But that would really
but
practically
a
wipe
lot
out.
of money would sit in my account, during the months running up to the event.
And wipe out your benefit.
Yeah, I don't know yet how it would affect my claim or the money I receive, but at the moment I'm expecting it to be subject to review.
Contacted the Harvard Working Papers. They told us Jackie case is complex, being investigated, and contacted the board with the CEO of Jeffrey Larry, director of following they do. The Jeffrey Larry Jackie case, obviously, a slightly unusual one. They're all self-employed people, different like that. What do you think?
Well, it's complex, but first we think it sounds fantastic. So I'm not sure if it's my cup of tea, but it's brilliant to grow an event from, I think it's 50 people in here, over 1,000 people today. So I think that's the first thing to say. And finding ways to encourage people to take those first steps into work is something that, fundamentally I think you should be looking to do. I think the difference in Jackie's case from the way it's used as tax credit is HMRC took a very kind of hands-off approach to self-assessment. And what you see there is it has its strengths and downsides. Its downsides indeed, people are left with big overpayments at the end of the year and they have to bear what would otherwise be income. But they tend to take a much more hands-off approach, whereas EVP takes a different approach around monthly assessments. So they're looking at average a month. And that's what they're doing in this case. So if Jackie's raising funds in that savings account, that you may well see that as income in that monthly assessment period, and that will count against people's credit. And I think I talked about it with a few colleagues, it is complex, it's ultimately to do with DWP, but I think separating out the donations from maybe the income set aside for actually doing the work is one way in which it makes it clearer to people.
Yes, and she's obviously thinking she might try and get the change, but that can be a complicated process, can't it? And the government tells us Universal Credit recognises that self-employed people experience periods of fluctuating earnings, but several people have been in touch. Another one only recently she's a musician. Why is this her irregular work? It's a lot more effort. You have to work it out every month, whereas normally when you're self-employed, it's every year that you have to sort it out. Is this pushing people off claiming Universal Credit once their tax credit is gone?
Yeah, I think there's a real risk, and you can see it in some of the numbers. I think you're recognising that far more people, they're expecting far more people to move from tax credit to universal credit. I think over 20% are that they would have otherwise expected to. That's kind of 1 in 5 people that they expected to have universal credit that opt out. I think it's a real shame. What I suggest to people who are making that move from tax credit to universal credit is that firstly you've got 12 months to look at your situation. So if you've got savings, you can still move across and pay rent for that for 12 months. If you've got, in this case, fluctuating earnings or lower.
You can have a sneak preview of an unreleased Blomkin track called Disco Tears. That's on our website now. It's available. It's going to be available the 1st of June. You check the website, our website, that's blomkinsessions.org. Thank you very much for coming in. That's the Loose Ends tied up for this week. If you've just left the programme, if you want to hear it again, you can find it in dozens of previous Loose Ends in the Hall of Plenty that is BBC Sound, including recent interviews with the media Lovibond and Armistead program. This week's guests, Kimberly Chambers and Jonathan Miller, Ron King, the teacher, and Abby Levitan. Today's producer is Claire Barton, and the studio managers are Donald McDonald and Emma Huff. Next week, my guests include Gemma Whedon and Mark Watson. Now, this week brought me sad news of the death of the multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist singer, songwriter Carl Wallinger, who, as it happens, was a friend of mine. He had many successes with his band world-class songwriting journey, but he was taken somewhat aback by Robbie Williams taking one of his songs to the top of the charts. So to end Loose Ends today, here is just a bit of Carl himself, He's the One, singing and playing He's the One, and from his appearance on this programme in 2012.
I was wrong, she was mean, we were one.
Year 4's journey from fertilisation to first birthday continues.
There was a woman, and now there's an entirely new human. It's the right, it's the word, it's just mind-blowing.
And exploring how science, society and history have shaped our approaches to childbirth.
And no woman will put her body through anything for the best of the baby. That doesn't mean that we have to.
Child, with me as your actor.
You've got the nerves to show me the centre and then took a photo.
So I just think
It's just such an amazing thing.
continues this Monday to Friday afternoon at 1:45 on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
Now on Radio 4, just before we join Ben Wright for the Westminster Hour, and tomorrow's weather. Much of the UK will see plenty of sunshine and patchy cloud. In the afternoon, Northern Ireland will turn cloudy, wet and windy. During the evening, wet weather will push into western Scotland, northwest England and Wales, but central and southeastern England will stay dry right throughout, and it will continue to be mild for all. The very latest forecast. It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to 60 minutes of political conversation with me, Ben Wright, and my guests. This is the Westminster Hour. The main news tonight, Vladimir Putin has been handed a landslide victory in Russia's presidential election. The vote has been condemned as a sham by Western nations. The former Secretary General of NATO, Lord Robinson, has told this programme that Labour will have to prioritise defence spending if it wins the general election. Coming up, lots of panic in the Tory party. Leadership speculations splashed across the front pages. We'll ask if Rishi Sunak's MPs really are pondering yet another change at the top. On my panel, former Cabinet Minister David Reid, Labour crossbencher Sarah Jones, and from the Policy Exchange think tank, Sophia Gaston. Kevin Schofield, politics editor at HuffPost UK, will be our expert guide to the week ahead, which could see the government Rwanda bill complete a final bout between the Commons and Lords. And we'll discuss what President Putin's re-election means for Russia, Ukraine, and for us. Lord Robertson says the West shouldn't be intimidated.
I don't think we should imagine that this man is a 20-fruit beer. A 20-fruit beer is still dangerous, but a 20-fruit beer would have taken over a bowl of beer is still very dangerous.
That's all after the news read for us this evening by Andrew Leach.
Vladimir Putin is on course for a fifth term in office, with exit polls suggesting he'll take 88% of the vote in a presidential election that's been criticised as being neither free nor fair. He's been in power for a quarter of a century, and has now been handed another 6-year term. In a victory speech at his campaign headquarters, Mr. Putin said the results showed Russia was right to choose its current path.
We have a lot of specific important tasks ahead. The results of the election signifies trust on the part of the country's citizens and their hope that we will do just as planned.
Many countries, including the UK, the US and Ukraine, said the elections were rigged. Dozens of voters in Russia have been arrested for taking part in a silent protest across the country. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg is in Moscow.
Outside Public Station 1321, it didn't look like an election. There was a full-scale carnival, with Russians in colourful costumes, bagging frying pans in soup ladles as they danced. The cast of entertainers was a large one. But when it comes to who will be president, there's only one star in the show. In an election tightly controlled by the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin was pretty much unbeatable. But today, his opponents held a symbolic protest. Opposition leaders had called on Russians to flood polling stations at midday to vote against Putin or to spoil their ballots. Before his death in prison last month, Alexei Navalny had backed the protesters. I've never seen things like this before on election day, and it took courage to take part. The authorities had warned that large crowds of people would be viewed as illegal gatherings, but not as real many, told me by humorously.
Was it wonderful to see faces of other people who would come that I'm not alone in my political views, and that there are a lot of Muscovites and other people who believe that Russia can be another country with another future.
Meanwhile, across town, Muscovites continue to place flowers on the grave of Alexei Navalny, who had wanted to be Russia's leader. There, among the floral tributes, is a ballad paper. In place of Putin's name, someone had written Navalny, and on another piece of it, there was this message: "He's the candidate we want."
Russian nationals have also been protesting and casting their ballots in cities around the world. In Berlin, Alexei Navalny's wife Yulia was greeted with applause when she joined a long queue outside the Russian embassy. Similar protests have taken place in Serbia, Finland, Sweden, France and the US. Our correspondent Will Vernon spent the day outside the Russian embassy in Washington. They brought banners, flags and even set up their own stage. Russians living in this part of the United States queued in their hundreds to cast their votes, and many of them to protest too.
These are not elections. This is Vladimir Putin reappointing himself president of the Russian Federation.
In the queue was the activist Yevgenia Kara-Murza, whose husband Vladimir is a political prisoner, serving a 25-year sentence in Russia for treason.
With all political opponents of the Putin regime being either forced out of the country, put in prison, or physically eliminated. So this is not a legitimate procedure, and Vladimir Putin cannot be seen as a legitimate president of the Russian Federation.
Legitimate or not, Vladimir Putin's next key election date will be the 5th of November, when Americans go to the polls to pick their president. The Republican candidate, Donald Trump, often speaks fondly of Mr. Putin and is skeptical of supporting Ukraine. Joe Biden, on the other hand, has called the Kremlin leader a killer and a war criminal. He's trying to convince Congress to pass a bill granting $60 billion of desperately needed aid for Ukraine. A former Secretary General of NATO, Lord Robertson, said Labour will have to prioritise defence spending if the party wins the general election. Lord Robertson, who served as Defence Secretary in Tony Blair's cabinet, told this programme that whichever party won the election, it would have to recognise how perilous the world had become for people in the UK.
It's going to be a hard time for an incoming Labour government to deal with the mess that they are going to inherit, but they'll have to look at their responsibilities for protecting the people of the country. That is, after all, the main obligation, the most primary responsibility of any government.
The US has begun evacuating its citizens from Haiti, where gangs are in control of key roads and parts of the capital, Port-au-Prince. A chartered flight took off from the northern coastal city of Cap-Haïtien. Reporting from Port-au-Prince is our Central America correspondent, Will Grant.
After weeks of a security and humanitarian crisis in Haiti, in which many embassies have airlifted out all non-essential staff, the US State Department has now laid on a charter flight between Cap-Haïtien and Florida for Americans still stuck in the country. Around 24 US citizens did take the opportunity to leave, including one man who told the BBC he was going to receive medical attention in Miami. The extent of the humanitarian emergency has turned Cap-Haïtien into the main safe haven in the country for people fleeing the violence in Port-au-Prince. UN estimates that more than 350,000 people are internally displaced, and that figure is thought to be rising by the day.
The Transport Secretary Mark Harper refused to say whether or not the Conservatives will accept more donations from a businessman accused of making racist comments about the MP Diane Abbott. Frank Hester has already given £2 million to the party, and reports say he offered a further £5 million. Here's our political correspondent, Helen Catt.
Government ministers have faced uncomfortable questions about Frank Hester and his donations in recent days after the Prime Minister said that his reported comments about Diane Abbott were racist. The Tories have been resisting calls to hand back the £10 million. They've also refused to say if more money is on the way. Speaking to Sunday Flora Koonsberg, the Transport Secretary Mark Harper didn't offer much by way of clarification.
I'm obviously not involved in sector, that's not what I'm involved with. In the future, there's a future donation that will be deferred to the UK. We looked at the processes for the regulations which the authority is preparing.
Asked if the Conservative Party had a problem with race, he gave a more definitive answer. Absolutely not, he said. Mr Hester's comments have also caused problems for Labour by putting Diane Abbott back in the spotlight. She remains suspended from the parliamentary party nearly a year after she claimed Jewish, Irish and traveller people didn't suffer racism, for which she's apologised. The veteran Labour MP Harriet Harman added her voice to those who said they would like to see Ms Abbott back in the fold.
I very strongly support Keir Starmer's drive against anti-Semitism. It had to be rooted out of the party, but I would be sad if Diane Abbott ends her political career, and she has been an amazing trailblazer, not a member of the Labour Party.
Another senior Labour figure, Jonathan Ashworth, said the investigation into Ms Abbott was an independent process that had to be respected.
Highways officials say workers have made good progress on the M25 in Surrey during the motorway's first planned daytime closure. The 5-mile stretch between junctions 10 and 11 was closed in both directions on Friday night. It's due to reopen tomorrow at 6 a.m. Workers have been demolishing a bridge and installing new gantry. Before Manchester United have secured a place in the FA Cup semi-finals with a dramatic win at home against Liverpool. A goal from United's Amad Diallo made it 4-3 to the home side in the dying seconds of extra time. No fairy tale FA Cup win for the Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp in his last season in charge, but he had nothing but praise for his side.
I cannot ask for more. I can't. The boys gave absolutely everything. We had a start was not great, but then our decision making was in some moments not great. We could have found a better player, the counter attack, but how we played in moments was absolutely exceptional.
Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp.
Thanks very much, Andrew. You're listening to the Westminster Hour with me, Ben Wright. Let's meet my panel, all here